Hello from Stockholm, Sweden, and welcome to this webinar. My name is Malin Russell, and I'm the project manager for the report that we're releasing today, which is called Impacts and Insights, Circular IT Management in Practice. What we're going to do today is take you through some of the main highlights of this report. Impacts and Insights, Circular IT Management in Practice is the latest in our series of annual reports focusing on sustainability in the IT sector. And this year it's all about circularity. We're looking at what the circular economy actually means for IT products and how circularity can be implemented by anyone who purchases and uses IT products. And to find the answers to these two questions, we've spoken to experts in the field, we've interviewed some people on the front line of circular procurement, and we've checked in with 3 IT brands to hear how the transition is going for them. And when we set up this project, our ambition was to really go further than just listing theories. We wanted to give some really concrete tips and also help those of you who want to take the next step in circular IT management. So we've asked everyone we've interviewed to explain what their challenges were and what they have done to fix them and move forward. So from these interviews, we're going to give you 33 hands-on tips that you can use to take you to the next step. So, as I said, we're going to be taking you through some of the report's highlights today, and to help us do that, I have 2 colleagues with me here today from our offices in Sweden and in the United States. Stefan Karlberg, my colleague here in Stockholm, will explain how a circular approach to IT products can help us meet some of the sustainability challenges related to IT products. Stefan, he's part of our criteria development team, and he's our expert on circular solutions. And then Claire Hobby from Houston in the United States will take you through some of the 33 tips from the experts we've interviewed for the report. And Claire, she leads our global team focused on engagement with the purchasing community. They support both public and private sector IT buyers in developing sustainable IT procurement strategies and using TCO certified. And of course, if you have any questions at all during this webinar, don't hesitate to type them into the chat function, and we'll be happy to answer them after the presentations. But before we jump into all of this content, I'd like to give you a quick overview of who we are. TCO Development is our organization, and we're behind the global sustainability certification for IT products, TCO certified. And this certification, TCO certified, is available for 11 product categories that you find in offices and in data centers. It includes both social and environmental responsibility, and the certification is updated every 3 years. And in our latest generation of TCO certified, which is called Generation 8, we're putting a stronger focus on circularity. So, what benefits does TCO certified carry for you? Well, by including TCO certified in product specifications, you'll be making sure that the IT products you buy actually are made for having a longer life and are durable. It will be possible to repair and upgrade them, and they will be recyclable so that their materials can be reused. And independent verification of compliance, making sure that products and their manufacturing facilities actually meet the set criteria, is something that's very important to us. So each year, independent verifiers spend more than 20,000 hours on product tests, factory audits, and follow-up audits. But now we're going to expand our view, and while circular criteria in procurement is one of the keys to circular IT management, circularity as a concept includes so much more. And this is something Stefan Karlberg knows a lot about, so I will hand right over to you, Stefan.
Thank you, Malin, for that introduction, and perhaps I can have my slide in a second. Yeah, so I'm gonna continue this webinar with my field here is connected to circularity and what circularity means for IT products. And just to begin this slide, I need to talk a little bit about the linear economy and what this situation is right now for us. So in the linear economy, we are taking materials, virgin materials from the mines in order to produce all the products that we have today. And they go through the value chain down to the manufacturing, and we end up with a lot of different products that you and I can enjoy, even in businesses and around the world. However, in the linear economy, the end of life situation, oftentimes after the first use of those products, the products are going directly down to the end of life solutions. And in the linear economy, we are mainly working with two different strategies here. The first one is landfilling, and the second one is incineration when we talk about the linear economy. And if you look up the linear economy on the web and on the internet and search for it, you will find the phrase take, make, and waste. So this is somewhat a summary of the linear economy. And we are producing products in a faster phase than ever before as a humankind. And in the same way, we are also generating waste in a faster phase than ever before. So this is what the bad stuff and actually what we want to shift away from. And we want to shift instead towards circular economy. And the circular economy aims at eliminating waste altogether and to retain the value within the system. So when we have a product and we look into the life cycle of that IT product, we try to retain the value that has been put into the product from the manufacturing phase. We do a lot of energy, we produce a lot of different components, so we want to retain that value within the system for as long as possible. And the circular economy does this by using those circular solutions mentioned in the presentation here is the maintenance, reuse, refurbishment, remanufacture, and recycle. So we tend to maintain the products as much as possible, and when we have used it for one person, instead of send it away to end of life solutions, we reuse it, and we could even refurbish a product that is not directly ready for the second-hand market. And then we have also the option of remanufacture, where we can take an old product and put some more energy into that product in order to make it look as good as a new one. And the go-to solution in the circular economy is when we talk about end-of-life situations, it's to recycle the product. And oftentimes when I'm out and talking about circularity and I talk with the businesses, or it could be different brands, and we have a discussion about circular economy, many times I hear that, well, we do some circular economy, and I ask them, what do you do then? So oftentimes I get like, yeah, we do some recycle. And I like to just highlight that circular economy is so much more than just recycling. So when we look at circular economy, actually recycling is the furthest out solution, as the least wanted solution that we are focusing on when we talk about circular economy. So we can go to my next slide. Thank you. So in this report that we are launching today, we have identified three main sustainability issues. So the first one is connected to our climate. So we are in a situation here where the climate crisis is knocking on the door, and we want to eliminate the excessive usage of greenhouse gases. And for the IT business, we have seen during this report that we found a new hotspot in the fields for IT products. Before, it was more connected to the user phase of the IT product, that the products themselves, they used a lot of energy. So just by using the products, we had a problem here. But now we have seen that actually the manufacturing of the products has a really big impact on the product life cycles for IT products. So we want to see more renewable energy used in manufacturing so we can shift away from fossil fuels. And it would be great to see some technological changes and development as we have seen in the products themselves with the lower energy emissions going forward. The second point that we are highlighting as a main sustainability issue is natural resources. And then again, we go back to the mining and usage of virgin materials when we produce IT products. The problem here is that we only have one planet and we need to take care of the resources that we have on the planet. So increased recovery is one hotspot here that we need to focus on, to recycle to materials that we can use again to construct and manufacture new IT products. And the last issue is e-waste, and for the IT business, IT sector, the e-waste is a crucial one. We have seen that the e-waste stream is one of the fastest waste streams that we have today. Over 50 million metric tons are produced annually, and the number 15 million metric ton is kind of hard to grasp. So just to make you understand it a little bit better, we can take that number and say that it equals around 5,000 Eiffel Towers in mass, just of e-waste that we produce on a global scale annually. And on top of this, we have that 80% of those 50 million metric tons, or 4,000 of those Eiffel Towers, actually goes to improper recycling, which means that we see that they end up in e-waste dump sites located around the world. Could be Asia, could be India, some places around in Africa, Ghana, for instance. And what they do here, they do manual recycling by incineration of the IT equipment in order to take the precious metals and sell them for work, though. And of course, we have health issues connected to this, and we also have environmental issues. So some of the health issues is just to be around a e-waste dump site, like where they use manual incineration of the products. Just to be there and inhale the fumes is a toxic environment. And then we have the environmental issues connected to leakage, because many of those products that has been lying on those e-waste dump sites, they will wither down with wear and tear and with rain, and so they will leak out in the close environment. And on top of this, many of those e-waste dump sites are located close to water areas, because most of the e-waste arrive with big ships. So then we have a leakage into the water, and it's a really bad situation. So this is the three main sustainability issues connected to the situation we have right now. So from the more holistic perspective that I have been talking about, from the main issues, we have in the report also highlighted some of the obstacles connected more narrowly to the IT product themselves. And I have cherry-picked a few of them. If you download the report after this webinar, you can go more in depth into all of the different obstacles and how we have explained how we solve them in the report. But I have cherry-picked a few, and the first one is lack of circular mindset. So we want to shift away from the linear economy towards the circular economy, but we have seen that we have some problems, some behavioral problems connected to this. And the first one is lack of communication. What I mean with the lack of communication in this case, because when we did this report, we have been talking with the industry, and we have been talking with a lot of different stakeholders while we were writing this, write the report. And lack of communication, in order to shift away from linear economy and to have a fully circular economy, we need collaboration between different industries. For instance, if we want to design a new product, it's important to talk to the guys at the end of life, like how should I recycle this product so we can get a really good recycled product after the end of life. So lack of communication is a big one. And then we have seen used products are perceived as inferior. And I would say it was much more so for like 10 years ago, but nowadays we have products that are so good in hardware. So before, for 10 years ago, when you bought a new, let's say a mobile phone, each generation, it was such a big step in hardware behind this product. So you could actually say that, well, you need to buy a new one because the other one is so bad. But nowadays, the products are generated that we see on the market now, they have such a good standard, so you can use them for much longer times. And we need to debunk the myth about that used products are perceived as inferior. You can actually use a second-hand phone or second-hand notebook, for instance, much longer now than you could for 10 years ago. And then we have technical obstacles. One of the big ones is secure data removal, because a lot of businesses and a lot of users, when they have decided that, okay, let's buy a new phone or buy a new product, IT product, they tend to keep the old one and put them in the drawer, or as a business, they buy a bunch of different IT equipments, and you can always find like a room where they store a lot of old IT equipment. The problem with this is, instead of having the old equipment lying around, we should reintroduce them into the system again and reuse them, so they have so we can retain the value of the products instead of just waiting before they are bad and we cannot use them anymore. So secure data removal is one of the indicators that we have identified. Like I would not leave out my old equipment because the risk of my personal information could be leaked out. So we have introduced in TISO certified generation 8 one of the criterion is secure data removal. So all the products that we certify must have an option to be able to do this in a secure way. And then we have upgrades and repair. And in the circular economy, two of the main circular solution is connected to reusage, and maintenance is the main one, closest loop connected to the user phase. And in order to maintain the product, you should be able to repair the product. So this goes hand in hand. And then we have fragile products. If you drop a product, it should be able to withstand a little bit of wear and tear, because if you drop it and it goes bad, then you need to actually recycle it and buy a new one. So durable products is something that we have introduced as well in TISO certified generation 8 durability testing. So we do drop tests and some other tests in order to see that the products have enough of durable quality. And the last point is not enough material reuse. So here we have the issue of chemicals put inside the products are the manufacturers, they want to have something from the chemicals. It's not just the chemicals are not just there just to be hazardous. But for instance, if we look at my cable here, one of the good things with the cable is that it's actually flexible. So we use plasticizers in order to make that happen. However, we see that there's a lot of good alternatives that don't necessarily they are not hazardous. So when we have an option that is really good and functioning, we should make that move right now. So switch away and phase out the hazardous materials and put in subsidize towards more safer alternatives. And the last point here is only 20% reach proper recycling. So this is again something that I talked about in my previous slide, that only 20% of the waste stream goes of the e-waste goes to proper recycling. So this is something we need to focus more about. So this is my presentation now, and as Malin said, if you have any question in my part, just write them down and we can take them after the webinar. And now I'm going to hand over back to Malin, and thank you.
Thank you so much, Stefan. It is clear, I think, that there's a lot of potential in the circular economy, but there's also a lot that needs to be done to make it happen. And I can imagine that it can be quite overwhelming where to start. And I think that's where our next speaker can help over in Texas. Claire, what would your advice be to organizations who are a bit unsure on where to start with the circular economy, and they might be wondering if they actually have the capacity for it?
Absolutely, and thank you, Marlon, and thank you, Stefan, for giving us a great overview of some of the not only the theories and the models, but some of the obstacles that we really need to overcome. And I know, depending where you are in the world, you may be very familiar with some of these concepts we talked about today, or the idea of the circular economy, and particularly connected to IT products, may be completely new to you. But the good news is there's a lot of things you can do today. There's a lot of things you can do right now to start on what is a longer term commitment to reaching a circular life cycle, a sustainable life cycle for IT products. And that's really what circularity is all about. It's a way to get to a more sustainable life cycle for the electronics that we use every day. So where to start? First thing I want to mention is that setting criteria, such as we do in TCO Certified, and if you're familiar with the work we do, you'll see that we now have a series of pretty good circularity criteria, but that's just one step. What makes a product more circular is what we do with it, both during the life cycle, at the use phase, but also what we have previously called end of life, what we now like to refer to as recovery. So what we heard during the development of this report is to don't think utopia. I think it's very easy to see the full spectrum of what needs to be done from the systemic level, but there are things that you can do right now within your own organizations, with your own stakeholders, with your own suppliers. And I would encourage everyone to take a look at what's out there right now. Take a look at who's out there right now, and really do some listening and some learning to see what steps you could take now while working towards some of these larger goals. So doing something, getting started is the key. Might take a little bit of bravery and a little bit of new ways of thinking, but that's where we would encourage everyone to make that first step. Talk to people around you, talk to your suppliers, analyze internally. And as we know, procurement and purchasers have a very strong voice when it comes to this kind of ecosystem change. And I think a big part of this is really making your circularity intentions clear for your suppliers. We know very well that industry is preparing for a transition to a more circular life cycle, but they also very much need to hear from procurement that this is important, that you have your eye on this, and that you want more circular solutions delivered as part of your tendering or your procurement process. They need to hear from you. It's important that you articulate your goals, but also learn at what level industry can deliver to those goals, either in your next procurement cycle and beyond, so that what you're asking for can be delivered at scale. So I would say definitely make use of pre-competitive dialogues, such as request for information processes. Share what your goals are, learn what your vendors can deliver to, maybe even set some longer term targets for just beyond your current procurement cycle. And also evaluate your supplier sustainability track record. What are their strategies and goals, and what have they achieved so far, so that you can really share some of this strategic thinking and hopefully find areas of common interest. So as we can see, part of our tips in the report, Sid Prakash suggests definitely asking your supplier for extended warranties that cover the service, repairs and battery replacement during your estimated use time. It's incredibly important to really try and max out warranty periods where possible, so we can extend the life of what we use. And also, I think one thing I should mention, also when you're talking to suppliers, consider asking new questions, different questions. Things like product as a service is starting to come up more and more. And I think when you ask that question, that definitely sends a signal amongst the supply base that, okay, purchasers are starting to look at different ways of using IT. Do you need a box every 3 years? Do you need to own that product on your desk? Or maybe do you rather need access to the material and the resources? So I think those those new business model kinds of questions can also come into the dialogue. And of course, when you think about what we have today, but also what we're going to use tomorrow, consider using them longer. Start thinking of, are there ways we could kind of future-proof our IT procurement and use? And again, this goes to trying to put some criteria into your tendering or your product specs that make sure there's components that can be repaired, upgraded, replaced. Is there modularity? Are there modularity options in place for the products that you want to buy? And battery life is something that comes up again and again. And it's kind of, you know, battery performance is key to our ability to use a product longer. So a couple of concrete tips that I've learned from you, Stefan, over the last few weeks, and that I find really useful. Don't keep your mobile devices in a hot climate. I live in Houston, so this is a constant reminder to myself. But also, as far as charging your devices, try and keep them at a range of between 20 and 80% of a charge at all times. That's just a couple of concrete tips. But also think, if you're using your products longer, you're also having a really positive effect on the emissions throughout the life cycle, because what we also know is that a lot of the emissions are happening in the manufacturing phase. So if you're using your products, let's say you currently have a 4-year usage cycle, if you could sweat that to 6 years, stretch that out 2 more years, you're going to save about 30% on your total emissions. So using those products longer is probably the best thing you can do right now to really make a push for circularity. And I think this brings us actually to collaboration. And then we can talk both internal and external collaboration. But I think the internal collaboration really starts with getting other people in your organization involved. And there we really need to think about cross-functionality conversations. So you obviously want to have your IT managers involved, but also, of course, sustainability. Consider bringing your finance people in, because if we're starting to talk about different business models, different ways of buying, different ways of doing life cycle costing, for example, they need to be in the conversation as well. And also think about your facilities people. If we're talking about new ways to think about repurposing, recycling, product recovery, those kinds of things, there's every chance your facilities people will need to be in that conversation as well. And definitely talk around your organization. Where could circular practices be introduced? You know, maybe there are different functions in your organization where a used asset could actually still be of use. There might be different areas in your community that could have use for products that you no longer use within your own organization. And there's incentives here too. One thing we heard in the during the development of the report is to really identify some incentives, right? It could be savings in CO2 emissions that make sense for certain stakeholders internally. Lower costs for IT management, for example, or even if you're able to resell your product, of course, there's some financial, some bottom line benefits there as well. And then we come to giving your IT products a second life. And I think this is really interesting because we obviously don't do enough of this today. If you think yourself, your computer that you've used for maybe 3 years, maybe 4 years, every chance it still is fully functional. In some cases, we're kind of locked into this 3 or 4 year cycle of replacement, and it may not be necessary. So even if you are moving on to new products, I'm pretty sure a lot of these products would have a second life. It could even be internally, if, let's say, through a used product surplus market for your employees at a low price. Also, right now, in these times of COVID, I know in North America, we have a lot of families, for example, a lot of people in our community that need technology at home and that just don't have the resources to procure it themselves. So there are a number of organizations out there that will take your used inventory, refurbish it, scrub it safely of its data, and make sure that communities and families in need have access to the technology they need for education and work from home purposes. Of course, we talked earlier a little bit about protecting that data, and I know that's a big concern for a lot of using organizations. Again, in TCO certified, we do have criteria around this. That software for secure data removal is included in certified products. But there are refurbishment, remanufacturing providers out there that are reputable. They will do this work for you. If you need some guidance on how to ask those questions, do contact us, because we can give you some guidance there on how to make sure that's done correctly. And we talked about internal dialogue before. But let's talk a little bit about joining forces with others and that external dialogue. We know that with such a global and complex ecosystem that IT is, the more the purchasing voice can join together or be a collaborative process, the better industry will be able to respond to those requests, and the faster we can push some of these circular developments and some of these sustainability elements as well. So the good news is there are several organizations out there that have started on some of this good work through either circular procurement piloting, just trying out different approaches, doing some inventory internally to see how are we using IT today, are there efficiencies we can gain, why aren't we using our products longer. There's a lot of great examples out there, and our experience is people are very, very willing to share. The key to progress here is learning from each other, sharing what we learn as we go along, because then we can have this much larger effect. And as our purchasing expert, Johan from the Netherlands, featured in this slide, says, you cannot close these loops on your own. You need to partner with stakeholders throughout the life cycle to get things done. So both your internal stakeholders and your external stakeholders, whether it's policymakers, definitely industry, but also consider other procurement professionals your new best friends, because they will be able to definitely help you along the way. Because what we know for sure is what happens at the end starts at the beginning. So if you think about that, what you ask for in procurement affects not only product design, but it affects what we can do with that product at the end of its usable life in your office. So the more we work together, the more we create common approaches, the faster we can progress. So let's get started. Here is a bunch of great people, my team, and we are located almost all over the world, but we definitely welcome you to contact us at any time. We're able to point you in the right direction for additional resources, hopefully connect you to some procurement professionals working in circularity in your own markets that you can talk to and learn from. I can also recommend organizations such as the Sustainable Purchasing Leadership Council in the United States. For those of you listening from North America, we are starting a circular procurement learning group, getting going soon. So you can contact me for information about that.
Okay.
I think I'd like to hand back to you, Marlene, and hopefully we have some fun questions from our audience.
All right, thank you so much for all of that, Claire. And maybe we can also mention that we now have this function on our website where you can book an online meeting very easily with our PEG team, purchaser engagement team. You can go in there and you can choose whatever time slots works for you and book a 15-minute quick introduction call. And of course, we can have other ways of contacting us as well. We got LinkedIn, we got email, and so on. But that's also an option. And when it comes to all of this, there's so much to take in. But luckily, everything we have shared with you and lots more is included in our brand new report, Impacts and Insights, Circular IT Management in Practice. And it is available from today at our website, tcocertify.com. So you can go there and you can download it. And if you got any thoughts or feedback on the report or any other questions, we would be more than happy if you contacted us. And of course, with this subject, there's so much to say, and this webinar doesn't cover even a small fraction of it. So on the 22nd of September, you will have the opportunity to listen to the experts that we have interviewed in the report. And you can also put your questions directly to them. This is online, and you are all more than welcome to join. And you can find more information about it, and you can also sign up to attend at our website. So now I think we do have quite a lot of time actually for some questions, which is really nice. And we've had some coming in through the chat function, and you can keep them coming if you haven't sent one yet. It's not too late. I think the first one I will ask both of you, maybe start with you then, Stefan. In this list of tips that we have with 33 tips, which one is your favorite?
Thank you, Malin. And my heart lies kind of close to batteries. So we heard Claire was talking about the tip of how we can maintain the battery in the products that we use. And I think this is a great tip that goes for everyone, just to keep the products away from excessive heat. So if you go in the car, don't leave the product in the car when the sun is shining, because this will degrade the battery, and we will have the problem with the batteries. When a user feels that the battery is bad, they tend to buy a whole new product instead of just replacing the battery. So I think this is a great tips to keep the battery in a good shape.
Very good, very good. What about you, Claire? Which one is your favorite?
So I literally just had to take a quick look through the list. Thank you for that question, whoever asked it. I actually love tip number one. And tip number one is all about making your intentions clear to your IT suppliers. We talked a little bit about it in the presentation, but what we see right now is there's actually quite a gap there. I think sometimes on the procurement side, we think, well, of course this is a problem and things are being done about it. So, but I think actually what we know is that IT industry is kind of waiting to hear from procurement on this. I've been in several conversations with brands and purchasing professionals, and there's been this exact conversation that when is industry going to offer more circular solutions? And industry says, well, that depends when you're going to ask for it. So I think with anything along sustainability lines, make your intentions clear. And when those intentions are coordinated with other purchaser voices, that makes the message to industry so much clearer and so much more straightforward for them to respond effectively to. It's when we start giving out all different signals from different directions that it makes it really hard to find clarity on how to respond to those things. So talk to your vendors, very important.
Yeah, very good. Thank you, Claire. And maybe here I have another one that could be good for you as well. One person is asking, we are very interested to ask for a number of aspects in our next tender. For example, extended warranty, upgradability, repairability, etc. But is the industry ready? How do we best ensure that we don't ask for things that the industry can't deliver yet? Or where can we find the information to make a good estimation of what the industry can deliver? What would you say about that?
Yeah, it's a really good question, right? And it's always a challenge to make sure that what you're asking for is pitched at a level that industry can deliver to. So we're not creating unrealistic expectations at the wrong time, because as we know, sustainability is a long-term commitment. We need to take these incremental steps towards the larger goal. And I would go back to what we talked about just now about really using a pre-competitive dialogue step. So before you publish a tender, before you publish those exact specifications, take that extra time to talk to your vendors. Let them hear what your priorities and your ambitions are. Listen to them so you can tailor those expectations at a level that is right for them to deliver upon now. Definitely challenge, but also really try and meet at a level that is doable, and that you still get the products that you want at the performance level that you want, and use them longer. So pre-competitive dialogues, requests for information processes are really, really useful for both learning what's being done right now and also putting the right specifications in your documentation.
Okay, thank you. And over to you then, Stefan.
To the question about which aspects to ask.
Yeah, sorry, maybe you wanted to add something there.
Yeah, I would just say that I'm working in the criteria development team, and we are the experts within the field, and this is exactly what we actually work on all the time, to have dialogue with the industry to find the magic goal in how much we can push and how much the industry is ready. So I would just recommend, if you just start this and don't know where to start, I would say use TISO certified. We have the package and we have everything fixed for many of you. So I would say that.
Okay, thank you, Stefan.
And Marlene, if I could just add there, I think definitely, I think also if you really, you would like to talk with another purchasing professional who's maybe done this before, we can maybe in the right direction there too. So definitely get in touch and we can help you out.
Okay, that very nicely links actually to another question I was going to ask, maybe to both of you. I don't know, where can we connect with others who are doing this work, people we could learn from, networks and projects and so on? Where do you actually find these contacts? How do you go about it?
Yeah, maybe I can grab that one. There are a number of initiatives out there. There's quite a few in Europe, particularly because the circular economy has reached the legislative and regulatory level in Europe. So there are circular public procurement networks out there. In North America, we are still getting going, but as I mentioned, the SPLC has some conversations going on in this direction as well. So you can definitely search around, or again, if you feel like contacting us, we can guide you further there as well.
Okay, thank you. So Stefan, when it comes to criteria, you mentioned you're part of the criteria development team. And I mean, sustainability is moving all the time, new challenges and new technical developments and so on. How will you work moving forward to let TISO Certified take the next step for circularity? Is a question.
So we are continuously developing our criterions in TISO Certified. So every third year, as Malin said in the beginning, we are launching a new generation, and we are now live with TISO Certified Generation 8. but we are right now in the development of TISO certified generation 9. So we will release a draft in 9th of November this year, where we will be very glad to have as many stakeholders as possible just to read it and give feedback on what you see that we have prepared for next generation. And of course, we have just started the move towards circular economy, and we will continue to push in this direction.
Okay, thank you. And here is one for you, Claire. What arguments should we bring to the IT department in our organization to convince them that we need to start buying and using circular? I can imagine this is something that can be challenging. They only see the issues coming with the upgrading of software and that they need more reorganize their resources to handle internal cycling of products. New opportunities, new challenges. What arguments should people use, would you say, Claire?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. There's probably not one size fits all there. But we know money talks, right? So, and there's actually a really good example in the report of a buyer who was dealing with this exact question. And when they figured out that, you know, these devices were done with internally, could have a second life, and that they could sell them further for refurbishment, you know, that financial benefit really spoke to the IT department. So I think once they employed that system as a routine, it was, you know, the IT department could account for that. But, you know, that was just one example of identifying incentives at various departments for putting this in place. So it might be, for some departments, it might be a matter of reducing, you know, meeting emissions targets, or it might be the cost of IT, of managing IT. It might be, you know, if you have an extended warranty, for example, or a really good service contract, you know, that may reduce your total expenditure on IT services and management. So there's that aspect as well. But definitely, if you can try and find a financial or a economic benefit for the IT team, that's always speaks very clearly to some of the benefits here.
That's a good point. And when it comes to different ways of owning IT products, this is a question maybe to you, Claire. Is leasing a more circular option than buying? Has that got anything to do with it, would you say?
Yeah, I'll give some input, and maybe Stefan has some good advice here too. Yeah, this is a question we hear a lot, and I think it's a very natural way to start thinking about more circular options. But a couple of things to think about there before you run to a leasing model. Remember that leasing is really just a financial construct. It's not necessarily an ecosystem change or a life cycle change. I'm not saying it's not a circular approach, but just really do some thinking around it, right? So the plus side of leasing is that the product is still owned by the manufacturer or the brand or the supplier, which means that those products get fed back into their system and their ecosystem. So hopefully there are some really good refurbishing, resale options that they put in place once you leave those products back at the end of your lease. But at the same time, leases can also mean that we're still getting a new product every 3 to 4 years. So that product is being manufactured again, when maybe it doesn't have to be. So, you know, there's a few things to think about here. You know, we talked about the emissions are highest in the manufacturing phase. So if we're manufacturing a product again that doesn't need to be manufactured for, say, another 3 or 4 years, then maybe leasing isn't your best choice if you really look at the life cycle impacts of these products. And also, but if you do choose to lease, you know, definitely talk to your suppliers about what kind of end of life programs they have in place for these products once you hand them back. to just make sure that they're being handled responsibly.
Mm.
And I'm not sure if you have any other good insights there on leasing, or maybe other.
Yeah, you told that many times that the manufacturer actually owned the leasing contract, but we have seen also that in many cases that there's another brand owner that buys the product and leases out the product, so it's not directly linked to the brand owner in all the cases. So that could also be why the leasing model is not the true circular, I would say. We would like to see more product as a service solutions, and for the IT business we don't have so many of those options yet, but I think we will see much more going forward. In other brands and in other products, we have seen more of the service as a product.
Maybe you can give some examples there, Stefan. Have you got any examples of circular business models?
Yeah, one of the oldest examples when we talk about circular economy is connected to Philips, and how they, instead of selling the light bulb itself, they contacted not the manufacturer, they contacted a store or whatever it was, but so they said, we want to buy the light, and we want to have light between our working hours, so we do not want to pay for the light bulbs, and we do not want to pay for the electrical bill. So then Philips went back and they accepted this. So Philips installed the best light bulbs they had, so they had low maintenance, so they didn't need to change the products. And then they just the company that bought this light as a service that you actually can still buy from Philips today. So they only pay for the light. And we have seen other examples similar to this service. So you shift the mindset, like, okay, what do you actually need? Do I need a car, or do I need something that takes me from A to B? So you need to start to shift your mind towards what do I actually need from this product. And I think we will see more of this going into IT products as well.
When it comes to then extending product life of IT products specifically, how long would you say it's reasonable that an IT product, maybe a notebook computer, for instance, can live today as they are designed today?
I would say it depends on, of course, which product that you buy. But if you look at the business segment and you have the more professional user IT products, I would say you can count on at least 6 to 7 years today. And I would say that this number only increases because the products are better, they are faster, and the technology still goes up. So when we do those estimations, I would say they are actually made from calculation a few years back. So I think we can even see usage of IT equipment peaking and touching towards 10 years going forward as well.
Okay.
Colin, I'm wondering, or actually,
Yeah.
Stefan, I'm wondering if I could ask you a question.
Yeah.
That I get a lot from in the purchasing space, and that's about software. I think, you get the question a lot, there's nothing wrong with my chassis, the notebook, the computer is fine, but I have all this software, or the software, is really more demanding, and that's one reason why I don't feel I can keep this product. Do you have any insights on where we stand today on that software concern?
I would say it's still connected to the issue that I brought up in my part of the presentation, where 10 years ago, this was a really big issue, I would say. So you have a mobile phone, and then you just update to the newest version. And then the problem was that software was designed for the newest generation, and now you have a product that actually works more bad than it was before. But I would say that the technology again and the hardwares, so the products that we see today, they are so much more powerful. So the software doesn't. I would say if you have those questions many times for purchases, maybe it's products that already have a few years on them. So I think this problem will be less and less and less going forward. And we see the software producers, they tend to go towards one options rather than bunch of different small ones. So I think this as well will be much better.
Okay, thank you. I think linked to that, we also have a question that's come in from a person attending the webinar. What needs to change in IT design for circularity?
Yep, and if we look at the products now, and it was interesting during this report, we have seen that many of the professionals that the industries that work with refurbishment and remanufacturing, they tend to go to business models, business IT, because they are more durable, so they are more suitable for circular solutions. But we still have a lot of consumer products. And my perspective on the consumer product is that they have another focus. They focus more on fashionable design. And when we try to have a product that is more fashionable, small, thin, and look good, then manufacturers have to decide how durable and repairable should the product be, or how good looking should the product be. So I would say the business products in the IT sector is much more suitable for circular solutions than the consumer products.
Okay, thank you, Stefan. I think we are starting to run out of time. Maybe we can squeeze one last question in. One of the first slides during the webinar indicated that in 2019, TCO development spent 20,000 hours of verification. In your own words, what does that verification include? And maybe you can also add something about how that makes a difference. Who wants to grab this one?
Yeah, I could just start from the development perspective. Is all criteria that we have in TCO certified for each product category, the product has to pass every criteria. And we are working closely with our verification organizations around the world, where the manufacturers send in the products for specific tests for the products. Could be drop tests, could be everything that we have in the criteria document actually. And then we also have all the social criterions. So when we add up everything together with the people that we work really close with, and how much testing that goes into verifying that everything is good to go, then we can see those numbers, the 20,000 hours of verification connected to the certification and the verification of the certificates. And the last question I didn't.
Well, how it makes a difference. I don't know if you feel you covered that or not. How does it make a difference when you verify compliance with the criteria, or if you don't? Why should you do and spend all these 20 hours? What's the point?
It's really crucial that we actually have their verification in the for TCO certified. That's one of our really most important stuff that we work with. And just example, if you go to a brand owner directly and you ask them, do you do this? It's quite easy to for the brand owner just to say yes, we do it, but you don't have any control in how did you do it, how do you comply to all those criteria. So third-party verification is so crucial when we want to have a playing field for the brand owners that use TCO certified to be able to how do you say it in Swedish, is competition. The competition need to be fair, and then that's why it's so important that we have full verification of all the products. Claire, maybe you have something more to add on this.
And I know we're at time here, but I think third-party verification is such a critical aspect for the procurement folks on the line too, because it gives you the confidence to know that the products you're getting that have the certification are verified to meet the criteria. And in particularly in the supply chain, when we've been in there and done this work, we know that you can have a code of conduct, but it's really all about what you do with it. And when you go in and you verify what is actually happening on the factory floor, we see sometimes declared corrections come back. So we need to be constantly in there and monitoring what's actually going on, and deliver that assurance to people, to the buyers that use TCO certified, that we are constantly on these issues and monitoring what's going on, because that way we can push sustainable development faster.
Okay, well, thank you so much to both of you. And now we are running out of time, and I'd really like to thank all of you who've joined us here today as well. It's been a real pleasure having you with us. And in a few days, we will send you an on-demand version of this webinar that you are more than welcome to share with colleagues or anyone else that may be interested. So with that, I think we will wrap up, and I will say have a great day or evening wherever in the world you are, and hope to speak to you soon. Bye bye.
Thank you, everyone.